I'm a little distracted by last night's debate. And I know everyone has a different experience. I'm sure everyone watched, or many people watched, but I woke up thinking just one thing. Kamala Harris has a gun? What? How can that be allowed? And by the way, why is that not the headline on every paper in the world, internationally, from Frankfurt to Tokyo? I mean, Kamala Harris has a gun. And I'm about as pro-gun as anybody could be. I carry a gun. I've hunted and shot my entire life. I hunt with my dogs. I could not be more pro-gun. In fact, I'm so pro-gun I don't even talk about it because it makes me too emotional. I don't think Kamala Harris should have a gun. And she's the only person I've ever said that about. I just don't think she should. I don't believe in red flag laws. I think we can make an exception for her. A gun? Really? No. And is anyone gonna ask what kind of gun and why she has it? She has no idea what side the bullet comes out of, like none. I'd love to watch her assess it. I spend an inordinate amount of time watching gun videos on YouTube, you know, like Hickok 45, or just gun reviews or whatever. And I can just imagine Kamala Harris being like, So that was my main thought about last night's debate. I had a lot of other thoughts too, some of them quite dark, and so dark that I was pondering it in the shower today. And I want to tell you what I thought, because I actually felt like I came to some important conclusions. You can judge for yourselves. And then I'll stop and we'll get to the meat of the show with Dan Bongino, who's such a wonderful person who's here. I'm really honored to have Dan Bongino here. Anyway, here's what I thought. So I'm watching last night, and I thought to myself a couple of things. One, and I've made fun of Kamala Harris since Kamala Harris was dating Montel Williams. I mean, there's really nobody. I'm a kind of an OG Kamala Harris mocker. I've had more fun making fun of Kamala Harris. I will never stop. I don't care if she becomes emperor of the universe. I will make fun of her. I will call her Montel Williams' side piece. I will play the school bus video. Like, I will never stop making fun of Kamala Harris because it brings me such deep joy. And I think we should do that. It's a sign of life when we can laugh at someone like Kamala Harris, and she's inherently ridiculous. She's not sinister and creepy like the guy she's running with. I can't even laugh about that guy. Woo! Not babysitting in my house. But, sorry, Tim Walz, I know you want to. You can't. But watching Kamala Harris last night, it actually made the hair on my arms go up, because I realized something that I had felt before, which is that she has no limits at all. At all. This woman has no limits whatsoever. This is someone who is clearly not a person of faith, doesn't think God is watching, thinks she is God, has no kids, so doesn't care about, the future in the way that people who have descendants, I'm just being honest, do care, and feels like she can do anything, actually, and would do anything. And I thought, man, I'm glad I'm not someone she hates, because I could, oh wait. Because if I'm being totally honest, she didn't seem like a buffoon last night at all. She seemed like someone with a mission. The mission is to take power. The process for taking power is memorizing a series of lines fed to her by her friends in Hollywood. She did it. She's dutiful. She's hardworking. And she's scary, absolutely scary as hell. And she has a long track record of putting people she doesn't like in prison. As one of those people, it gave me pause. And so I had a couple of quick thoughts, like, can I go anywhere? No, I'm American. I'm not going anywhere. I'm 55. I will die here, buried with my ancestors. I'm not going anywhere. So I'm staying. And I mean that. I mean that, especially, I don't know how much time you spend around rich people, but there is this kind of conversation that you hear if you're around rich people, which is like, well, I'm going to so-and-so, I'm going to so-and-so. And it's like, no, actually, there's something about burning your boats, and my ancestors burned their boats hundreds of years ago, actually, here. So like, I literally am tied to this country as deeply as anybody can be, but that's the right mindset. No, it's my country, actually, and you're not allowed to come in and just take it over. You know what I mean? And send in new voters from around the world to like eat my cat and get you elected. No, I'm not doing that. By the way, the spirit of hilarious resistance lives on the internet. If you haven't looked up cat memes in the last 24 hours, treat yourself. It's like no matter how dark it gets, there will always be somebody on Twitter who's just like a brilliant person, who comes up with an even funnier Save Our Cats meme. Anyway, but I thought, no, I'm not going anywhere. And I thought, this woman actually scares me for the first time. It was funny to make fun of her when she was this person who no one has ever voted for or ever liked. She has no fans anywhere. And for those of us who grew up in a system based on the idea that, in order to wield power, you have to have the consent of the governed. Do you remember that? That was actually the idea the country was founded on. That government has no legitimacy apart from the approval of citizens, period, because we own the country and they don't. Kamala Harris does not own the country. The people who work for Kamala Harris do not own the country. Federal bureaucrats don't own the country. The mayor of your town doesn't own the country. Anybody who works for the government works for you because you own the country, period. And kind of like any other job, you serve at the pleasure of the employer, as I found out personally a year and a half ago. And that's all right. I wasn't mad about it. That's fair. That seemed fair to me. The person who owns it gets to decide who works there, right? So, that's just the most basic arrangement in the world. If you catch your housekeeper stealing, she doesn't get to lecture you, right? You get to fire her because you're her employer. And our government servants, or they're our servants. They belong to us because this country belongs to us, period. And so I've never really been afraid of any politician in my life, because why would you be in your own country? It's my country. If I do something wrong and you can prove it, then put me away. That seems fair to me. But you can't just hurt me because you don't like my politics or because I criticize you or because I point out that you're incompetent, greedy, and dishonest. That's not allowed. You can't put me in jail for pointing out that your friends killed Jeffrey Epstein. Sorry, you're the criminal, not me. Right? So there's really never been a time where I felt like, ooh, this is scary. And it made me mad, really mad, really mad. Actually, enraged me. And it was only after getting a text from one of my many children who was like, I think Trump did a great job and Kamala's an idiot and everything's gonna be fine, that I calmed down a little bit. And she may be right, I hope so. But I did think, what are the perils to me, to all of us, in a moment like this? And there's probably not going to jail. I mean, there are just too many, 350 million people. We don't have the capacity to throw all the thought criminals in prison. We could throw some, but not all. Most of us are not going to jail. The real threat, actually, is a much deeper threat to ourselves. So I have noticed for the past, say, 10 years, I've been in roughly this business for almost 35 years. It's really accelerated in the last 10 years, where everyone who disagrees with the people in power is a bad person, is some species of hater. It's not just that you're wrong about tax rates or even gun control or abortion. It's that you hate women, or you're a racist, or you're some species of bigot. You're morally impaired. And of course, the irony is that in general, the people they call those names are the best people in America, actually. They're the most likely to help their neighbors, no matter what their neighbors look like. They're the most likely to leave the beleaguered waitress a big tip, actually. Studies have been done on this that show that people with our views are much more likely to give to charity, much more. How much do you think Kamala Harris tips? Right around 0, right? And so actually it's a pure inversion of the truth. It is a really dark lie. It's an evil lie. It's a sign, actually, of evil when you lie like that. There are many different ways to lie, and those of you who have children are familiar with a lot of them because kids lie. And it's always a little bit shocking when you catch your 4-year-old, who's like the center of your life and the most beautiful, pure being ever to exist, and you catch that child lying because, that's just part of what it is to be human. We're all fallen. But the way that kids lie is so instructive, and I'm sure you've seen it. You come downstairs in the morning and the Oreos are gone. And your 4-year-old comes down and you're like, did you eat the Oreos? And the 4-year-old is totally ashamed to be caught because the 4-year-old wants your love and acceptance and does not want you to be mad at him. But he knows that he did it. And so he tells a lie that's 3 degrees off the truth. He's like, well, I had 1. Well, there were 11 Oreos here, Dylan. What happened to the other 10? I don't know. I had, maybe 2. And every parent has seen this. And And you scold the child for lying because you want to raise honest children. In fact, that's really what you want out of life, is honest children. It's the most important thing. Honesty is the most important thing. However, it's an understandable kind of lie. That's not the kind of lie that our leaders tell us. The kind of lie the leaders tell us is the exact mirror image, the photographic negative of the truth. It's the opposite of the truth. So if you caught Kamala Harris and said, Kamala Harris, did you eat those Oreos? She would say, no, you did. You ate those Oreos, you racist. And there's something very effective about that because it throws you off. It's like, wait, these are the people. So I'm 55. I grew up in a world that kind of thought Martin Luther King was onto something, and we should judge our fellow Americans because they're our fellow Americans. We're in this together. We share this country. We should judge them by what they're like as people. And the Christians among us, which in my childhood was most of us, understood that God created all of us. We're all created by God, period. So we all have that divine spark within us. So you may be super annoyed at somebody, but in the end, God created him too. So you can't write people off on the basis of how they look. You can definitely write them off on the way they behave, fair, but not on how they were born. That's unfair. Everyone understood that. But people like Kamala Harris have created a system. It's like pretty common to the system we claimed we hated, where everyone is judged by their appearance and their genetics before any other factor. That's racist, okay? That's the definition of racist. That's what we said we hated. She did that. And so for her to turn around and tell me or you, who actually would like to live in a colorblind meritocracy, which was like the promise of this country, that you're the racist, it's like, no, you ate the Oreos, honey, I didn't. But there's something about that kind of lying that throws you off base. It's like shocking. It's like so stunning that someone could lie with that little effect. Like all of us, like a normal person, not even a particularly good person, like let's just say me, you don't feel good telling a lie. Like your face twitches or you kind of look down. You can't make eye contact while you lie. I watched Kamala Harris last night. You ate the Oreos. And you're like, wow, maybe I did. Because nobody could make that claim unless there was a little bit of truth to it. Maybe I had one Oreo, maybe I was sleepwalking, maybe I had a head injury. Did I have a stroke? I remember this. I remember being called, the first time someone called me racist, I was like, huh? First of all, that's awful. No, I don't want to be called that. But I remember thinking about it. Am I a racist? No. Actually, I just don't like you. And you're a rich white lady. I don't think that's racism. I just don't like you. Anyway, after a while, watching people lie like that, and particularly watching them lie in the very specific way they do, which is accusing you of moral crimes, it can make you enraged. And here's what can happen, and I think this is part of the design. It can turn you into a hater, actually. They call you a hater enough, it will make you hate. It will. Maybe not on racial lines or whatever, but it'll fill you with hate. To be attacked like that so unfairly and to watch people wreck a country that your ancestors built, that they did nothing to build at all, and to sort of give it away to the rest of the world, give cell phones to people here illegally. What? There's nothing more insulting than that. You know, there's nothing more insulting than that. You can't afford a house, but they're giving housing vouchers to someone who broke the law to get here? What? You don't have to be anti-immigrant, which I'm not, by the way. I'm hardly anti-immigrant. I'm against that because that's the most unfair and insulting thing anyone's ever done. You're treating our country like a rental car. Seriously, like a rental car. Like you're scraping against, barriers in the Walmart parking lot, not changing the oil. Like you don't care. And that can fill you with hate after a while. And I would argue, because I do think this is spiritual, I don't think any of this is political, actually. I think the goal is destruction. The goal is lying for its own sake. The goal is to break things, actually. There's no effort to build anything. They're always telling you they're gonna make a better society. Okay, go ahead. By the way, if Kamala Harris just fixed the roads, made the DMV a little better, you know what I mean? Drop the price of breakfast cereal by $1. I'd probably, I wouldn't like her. I wouldn't agree with her on tons of issues. But at least you're doing something. You're making things a little better. Kind of hard to deny that. I'm for progress, actually. I think most of us are. No, it's only about destruction. And part of the thing they seek to destroy is you from within. They call you a hater in the hope that you'll become one. That's true. And you just can't let them. You can't let them do that.